Okay, perfect. Okay, good. Okay, guys, awesome. Thanks very much for coming. I apologize for that. The previous stream just will not connect to the video feed, so I started a new stream and it worked right away. So basically, where we're at right now is we are preparing to launch the Safecoin Validators. I've been pretty much coding all night, working on them, and they are basically complete at this point in terms of the code. So I finished that not too long before this meeting started. And essentially what the validators do, which is different from Solana and other chains, is that they use random sampling. So what Solana does with their chain is they have 300 validators vote on every single block. So that means you have two and a half blocks per second, and each block has roughly 300 votes. So what that means is with Solana, they actually run at 600 plus TPS, 600 800 TPS out of the gate just to maintain consensus. So it works out to around 600 in the end, but I know you think it'd be a little bit higher, but it tends to run at about 600 TPS. So what is 600 TPS? 600 transactions per second. You are talking about 50 Bitcoin networks, right? So that is, 50 plus Bitcoin networks, depending on the speed Bitcoin's running at a given time. They're running about 50 Bitcoin networks just to maintain consensus. Now, the actual work they're doing to provide exchanges and things like that is significantly less. An example: say you want to run Binance. So you want to run Binance on a decentralized exchange. You would need about 100 transactions per second to run Binance. So of course they don't have Binance running on them right now. So they're doing about 600 transactions per second, roughly, just to maintain consensus, and maybe about one transaction per second or half a transaction per second to run all the amazing DeFi features they're running right now. So basically, we want to be able to have that high TPS level. We want to be able to run at 600 TPS, 100,000 TPS, maintain all those features. But at the same time, we don't necessarily want to run 600 TPS just to maintain consensus, right? Because we could become the largest blockchain in the world and never come close to that. Like we might, hit 30 TPS if we were the most powerful blockchain in the world, most used. So what our validators do is they use random sampling. So say we have 300 validators on the Safecoin network. It's going to randomly sample 2 or 3 of them on every block, and then they'll vote on that block. If they can't reach an agreement, it's going to move to the next slot, and they vote again until they get an agreement. Now, because it's randomly sampled, you get all that decentralization that Solana gets. Basically, as long as the sampling is random enough, and an attacker can't insert his voter in, then you get all the decentralization you get from Solana with 300 voters for every block without actually using 160 terabytes. So we have multiple ways of making our validators more sustainable for communities. Magilla, it's TPS, yeah, transactions per second. And this is one of the key ways is we have a better consensus. I picked it up. It is used in some other blockchains, some of the newer blockchains, and we've introduced it into Solana. So I've been testing it this morning, and it is working quite well. So we're going to be pushing up some code for that today. Now, a couple of other things our validators do is they store data a little bit more efficiently than what Solana's using right now, and they also have improved compression. Now, when you combine the lower TPS with improved compression and better data storage, that's how we're able to achieve 2 terabytes a year instead of 160 terabytes per year. It also means the validators you're running are going to be significantly easier to run. So for a Solana validator, you're going to need upwards of a terabyte of SSD. So they prefer NVMe, and you need over a terabyte. So those are pruned validators. What they do is they prune the blockchain, and the validator is only concerned with things that are happening right now. In our implementation, instead of upwards of 1 terabyte NVMe, we will require 10 gigabytes. And actually, we can go lower than that, but we're requiring 10 gigabytes of SSD. It doesn't even have to be NVMe at this point. It can be any SSD, and you should be fine. So when you're speccing out your validators, I would suggest you look at 10 gigabytes disk space. You can try as low as maybe 8, but we'll recommend 10 gigabytes. I'm going to stop here and just read the comments. I don't see any actionable comments yet other than is Safecoin on Binance? And of course it's coming. So Brandywine just asked, does it need 300 nodes like Solana? Brandy, the answer is no. It does not need 300 nodes. We're aiming for about, to start off with, we'd like to have about 30 nodes. Now, do we want 300 nodes? Yes, we do. We would love 300 nodes. But the difference is that we don't need them because of the way we do our random sampling. We're just fine with, say, 30. Now, of course, if we grow and we get 300 nodes, that's great, but we still won't use up as much disk space and resources as Solana. Even if we had 300 nodes, we just wouldn't need that. Is it BSC? It would be I hate to use the word competitor, but it would be doing something very similar to what BSC does. Obviously BSC has a lot of exposure. This would operate significantly faster than BSC and at even lower costs. So we are able to exceed what BSC does in terms of performance. All right, so Mr. C. Oh, sorry. Yeah. What is the minimum specification required for a pruned non-full history validator node, one that normal people will run on VPS? So that's Mr. Coin's question. So here's the answer to that. You're looking at disk space of about 10 gigabytes. You're going to need SSD. It doesn't have to be NVMe, but you're going to need SSD. So if you have SSD 10 gigabytes, you're going to be fine. You can try a little lower if you want. You're probably fine at 8 gigabytes, but we recommend do the 10 gigabytes SSD. You're going to be able to run the pruned validator just fine. In terms of processors, you need AVX support. So what you want to do is, whatever you're going with, look up whether or not the processor you're using has AVX support. The answer is that most of the newer processors have this. So if you, I mean, you can look up your individual processor, but most of the newer processors have this support. I'll give you a little hint right now. We've been doing a lot of testing on Contabo VPSs. The Contabo VPSs work fantastic. So if you, if you pick out a VPS on Contabo, it's going to be able to run a validator. There's some lower tiered packages on Contabo and they work fine. Now, of course, you don't just have to go with Contabo, but we use Contabo for testing because it is very inexpensive and it has the performance we need. So that has AVX support. On the other hand, if you get a dedicated server, you would think a dedicated server would be better, but actually, not only is it more money, but a lot of dedicated servers don't have AVX support if they're older servers. So you need to make sure that you've got that AVX support. So we've covered disk space and we've covered the processor. RAM, we think you should be able to run at 8 gigabytes RAM. From the testing we've done so far, 8 gigabytes RAM should be enough to make this run. If you can get more, get it. We recommend it. This is a very intense program. Keep in mind it does multi-threading, so there's a lot going on in the program. But 8 gigabytes should allow you to run mainnet. So what we're looking at there is 8 gigabytes, AVX support for the processor, and 10 gigabytes RAM SSD. Again, you can look on VPS providers like Contabo and find packages that meet those requirements. Hetzner as well. Hetzner's another one. And there's many more that you can go from, or you can also run your validator from home. I'm going to get to the questions in a second here, but one comment on running your validator from home, and we're going to include this in the documentation. You're going to need port forwarding. So you need port forwarding on 15 ports, port 10,000 to 10,015 to make the Safecoin Validator run if you're running it from home across your ISP. So if you're running the validator from home, make sure you have port forwarding. Number 2 is make sure you have unlimited internet. This is going to use between 50 and 60 gigabytes of bandwidth per day. Okay, so most VPS providers provide unlimited internet or enough that won't be an issue, right? So you're not going to exceed vulture limits. You're not going to exceed Contabo limits. Your home provider, double check that it can handle 50 or 60 gigabytes per day. Okay, I'm going to turn to the questions here. I think I've covered some of the basic specs that you need. How much safe would you need to run a validator from Ballbreaker? Okay, this is a good question. So the answer is all you need. So this is the setting we have right now. Now this is up for community debate, and we can still modify this. But on release, we're looking at you need 10 Safecoins to run a validator. But there is a catch. If you run 10 Safecoins, if you run a validator with 10 Safecoins, you're not going to make any coins. It costs a little bit of Safecoin just to run the validator. Okay, because every transaction you make costs a fee. You're not actually going to turn much of a profit at all because your rewards are based off how much stake you have. So how we have this configured, you probably want a minimum of 10,000 safe to run a validator. That is a minimum. Now, of course, we're going to be doing testing over the next month here. It could turn out that you need more. Okay. I think 10,000 is a minimum of what you want. Now, keep in mind that that doesn't necessarily have to be all your Safecoin. Okay. You can have Safecoin delegated to you. So if you want to run a validator, you need to find people in the community that trust you and will delegate their Safecoin to you. And of course, they keep the private keys. You don't touch their private keys. But if they delegate the Safecoin to you, then you can actually run a validator and the two of you can agree on a cut, basically a fee that you're going to charge for your validator service. And then that comes out. So that's a setting you put in the blockchain. Okay, I'm going to move to questions. Brandy Wine asking BSC competitor. Yeah, and we don't like to use the word competitor, but that's the easiest way to explain it. We certainly share a lot of features with BSC in terms of what we do. It's just a faster, more powerful version of it. They've definitely got more Twitter followers right now. So basically, Brandy's asking, does it require Solidity? Now, so just for people who may or may not know, Solidity is really the basis behind Ethereum. So when you look at Ethereum, people say Ethereum has a VM, a virtual machine, and that virtual machine runs on Solidity, or rather Solidity runs on the VM. Now, in Solana, the answer is, first of all, do we need Solidity to run Solana? No. Do you need Solidity to run the validators? No. Do we need Solidity to run SafeSwap? No. But we do have Solidity. So if you want to port, so we have Solidity functionality. And what we would use that for is porting over applications from Ethereum. So if there's applications on Ethereum that want to move to a more advanced chain, they can move over to Safecoin, and they can do that using Solidity. So basically, what it means, we have Solidity support, and the entire purpose of that is to be one-to-one compatible with Ethereum. So we have Solidity compatibility, and we also have a what they call a wormhole, which is an Ethereum bridge. Okay, so the Ethereum bridge allows us to be compatible with ERC20 tokens on Ethereum as well. Having said that, we have our own tokens, which have features which are more compatible. Some advanced features that Ethereum doesn't have yet. We also have our own set of smart contracts, and they are based off a technology called WASM. And primarily, we code them in Rust. They can be coded in C and C++ as well. Now, our newer WASM smart contracts are the one that we're going to actually run SafeSwap on. Okay, I'm going to move to questions. Ball breaker, yes. So there are smart contracts. We have pretty much the most advanced smart contract capabilities of any blockchain, really. Okay, next question. We saw this one coming. What are the estimated rewards returns for nodes and proof of stake? Okay, so both, this is a bit of a coincidence actually, but both Safecoin and Solana right now are running at around 7% inflation rate. Now, of course, that'll drop over time. We are a limited supply coin, right? So we don't pump out huge inflation numbers, especially for a crypto coin. So that's 7%. What that means is, so what happened in the old chain is that 7%, most of it went to miners, okay? Miners got most of the rewards. Now, as we move to the new chain on Solana, there's no mining rewards. Everything is basically rewarded through the validators, okay, through staking on the validators. And we're looking at basically the same 7% emissions, but it depends how many people are actually validating and staking, right? So if 100% of the Safecoin supply was being staked, then you'd get 7%, roughly. There's lots of caveats, like we can't promise that. There's lots of exceptions and whatnot, but basically that's what you get. Now, if only half of the Safecoin supply is staked, that's 14%. Okay, so that gives you an idea. Now, we don't know how much people are going to stake, but that gives you a little window. Is if 100% of the supply was staked, it'd be around 7% per year. If half is staked, it'd be 14%. And keep in mind, now we do have a pre-mine, for instance. None of that's going to get staked. Nothing on exchanges is going to get staked. We know nowhere near 100% of the supply will get staked. Okay, I'll move to questions. Okay. What is the primary use case for Safecoin versus Solana? The primary use case is basically, I mean, we completely support Solana. Obviously, we chose Solana for a reason. So, you know, we don't have too much bad to say about Solana. We think it's fantastic technology. However, it's also an IEO, right? It's an IEO. It had sales. It has some legal challenges that we don't have. It's also very, very resource intensive, right? So you're looking at, again, they use 160 terabytes per year right now, and that's growing. You have to use highly expensive software in order to run it. Basically, Solana's run almost entirely out of data centers, right? So how decentralized is that? It's hard to say. What we are is we are a community edition of Solana, right? So what that means is, first of all, we're fair launch. So if you want to run a smart contract on Safecoin, you don't have to worry about legal issues. Okay, so we're fair launch. We use a fraction of the resources, so it's a lot less expensive to run the same stuff on Safecoin. It's a lot more sustainable. And we also have things like the ability to run a validator without KYC. Now, you can run a validator on Solana without KYC, but you can't actually stake it. So, you know, Solana has things in it like KYC, which, you know, that's part of what comes with having an IEO, right? We don't have that burden. We can offer a pure, more community-oriented version that will appeal to more people and be able to get more widely adopted. There's a lot of questions. I'm going to see if I can scroll back. Is there a test smart contract we can look at? The most powerful sounds big, would like to try it. Yeah, so, and by more powerful, what we mean is TPS, you know, upwards of 100,000 transactions per second. We also mean finality, right? So people talk in terms of block time. We like to talk now, instead of saying block time, we say finality. So what finality means is how soon before you know that transaction is 100% confirmed, right? So how do you know when, at one point do you know that transaction is irreversible? In Bitcoin, that's somewhere between 10 minutes and an hour. In Ethereum, it's around 5 to 10 minutes. In our new Safecoin and in Solana, finality is 1 second. Actually, well, 800 milliseconds. So within 800 milliseconds, in just under a second, you can know that your transaction is final. And that allows us to do things which are considerably faster and better. And one of those is, running an exchange, for instance. So an example of a smart contract that you can run is literally any smart contract. So if you look up Ethereum smart contracts, you can take any one of them and run them on our chain. The difference is that all of a sudden that smart contract is going to run far, far faster and for far less money. So you can take Uniswap and you can run Uniswap on top of our chain, and it will just run faster and better, almost like a centralized exchange. So literally any smart contract you can think of, you can run it on top. And there is a test smart contract. It's hard for me to really convey it over video, but there is a test smart contract which is basically kind of like a video game which you can run. So maybe we can talk about that further after. The most prominent one you're going to see is we're going to be putting out a DEX safe swap fairly soon here. Okay. McGill Gorilla, why start another exchange? So basically, it's about non-custodial, right? So if we run a DEX, there's going to be no central authority, right? It's going to be the rules of the blockchain that govern the trades. On top of that, your keys are your keys, right? So when you're running on a DEX, you keep your crypto keys. Your crypto keys stay yours until you trade them away. Now, on a centralized exchange, you have to give up your crypto. You basically lend your crypto to the exchange, right? So there's a huge movement right now towards decentralized exchanges because they allow you to keep control of your funds the entire time, and because they follow simple rules governed by the blockchain rather than rules governed by a corporation. Okay, I'm looking for another question here. Yeah, so the Safe Swap so far is not fully launched yet. So we can't really comment too much on the track record. That's what it is, right? It's going to be an extremely powerful decentralized exchange, but I mean, it's hard to answer a track record question on an exchange that's just being launched. I'm looking for more questions. Has there been any issues? Crypto Gamer, can you explain how easy it is to stake? Will we have to use command line, or will you be on Ledger like Solana? Okay, it's a really good question because you can stake on Ledger. We are going to be on Ledger for sure. Now, to start off with, when we first launch, some of it will be command line, and Solana was the same way, right? When they first launched, they were all command line, and then they started building these tools. And of course, we're going to be able to do that faster because a lot of it's been done for us, and we can go ahead and start rolling it out. You know, we're pretty excited to add Ledger. We're also looking at, potentially Trezor. So basically, yeah, we can only do one thing at a time, right? Like, we are still a small team. So we're going to launch one thing at a time. The first thing we're going to launch is the actual validators. Shortly after that, you're going to see things like the ledger come out. So there will be a tiny gap in there where if you want to stake, yes, you might need to use command line. But that won't last very long, right? So shortly after we get the validators up and running, we're going to go through, we're going to be gathering a lot of data in the first month of the validators running. And very early on in that, we'll start adding supports that you don't need to just use command line. Crypto Gamer, what funds will be allocated for marketing? We are accepting all funds from Crypto Gamer for marketing. DM me, let me know what you're donating, and we'll use it all for marketing. So we actually have a pretty large and passionate community, and that's always how we've grown. And it's been amazing to see the growth sometimes. Definitely, we do invest resources into the project. But first and foremost, we always want to thank the community for what they've done to grow the project. We wouldn't be here without them. And you cannot say enough good things about a strong community of people who want great things for crypto. So that's really where we have that's where we thank people the most in terms of how we've been able to grow into what we are now and what we're becoming. And keep in mind, organic growth is exponential. Brandy Wine, if they have smart contracts, they can run a swap. Yep, correct. So Mezian asks, in which cases can a validator be penalized? So if you continuously miss your turn, right? Like, so if you're in the leader schedule and you don't perform, then you do get penalized. But I mean, nobody hauls you off to jail or anything like that. It's, you get a very, very small penalty. It's not a huge deal. And also keep in mind that on the Solana network, it's very, very easy to get penalized just because they have those 300 votes every block. It's an incredible amount of network resources to keep that running. And we don't have that issue. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, in terms of penalization, yes, you can get performance penalizations, but it's going to be extremely hard to do that on Safecoin in comparison, simply because we have made the network far more efficient and easier to validate on. Okay, Brandy Wine has a fantastic question. The question is, how do you get outside coins onto the new chain? It's a very good question. Now, in order to get outside coins onto the new chain, they need to be wrapped. They need to be wrapped into a token. So, Brandy, the primary way. Sorry, if your name's Brandy, the primary way is wormhole. So we actually have an Ethereum bridge. That means any token currently running on Uniswap or any Ethereum-based exchange, which is, 95% of the dexes right now, automatically runs on SafeSwap, period. It just runs faster. So basically, we're completely compatible with any ERC20. Now, there's more we'd like to do. We'd like to, as part of our roadmap, we'd like to actually bridge out to other alts. Obviously, coins like Polkadot with PokeSwap, Avalanche too. There's a number of projects out there that we'd like to have integrations with as well. But out of the gate, the one which holds 95% of the market is completely compatible with SafeSwap. So they literally just need to list and start saving money. Moo. Lots of hype around Bonfida, Serum, and the recent Cope, Rope, etc. airdrops. It was good to see a market added in the real-time to an exchange. Will SafeSwap have this same functionality? Absolutely, yes, we will. So we will be competing with those exact exchanges and have that same functionality. Big Mac, what is Validators? That's a valid question. So Validators, the easiest way to make an analogy is masternodes. If you think of masternodes on Dash or a lot of other coins, that's kind of a way to, an initial way to think of validators is from the masternode concept. They are far different. The validators are designed for high performance, right? They're designed for the blockchain to run at extremely high TPSs with extremely complex smart contracts at extremely high speeds. So they're definitely not master nodes, but maybe that would help. Think of them as just high performance master nodes, and that might be the simplest way in the time we have to explain validators. Okay. Brandywine, next question. Still curious about wrapping Bitcoin, or how will that work for SafeSwap? Basically, because wrapped Bitcoin is already ERC20, it's automatically compatible, right? I would like to talk about this a little bit as to how that'll work, though. So first of all, SafeSwap will automatically offer wrapped Bitcoin, period. Having said that, we're also going to have SafeSwap integrated with SafeTrade. Now, I can't promise a timeline on that. Obviously, we've got a lot of work to do there, but we want to integrate SafeSwap with SafeTrade. Now, what that does is it creates kind of the same kind of relationship that Binance and Binance Chain have, right? So if you've got Bitcoin on Binance and you want to withdraw the Bitcoin, you can withdraw it natively to Bitcoin and pay a large fee, or you can withdraw to Binance Chain, right? And then if you withdraw to Binance Chain, it's a lot cheaper. So what we're dealing with is SafeTrade. You will be able to have Bitcoin on SafeTrade and withdraw it to the Safecoin chain at a fraction of the cost. And once you withdraw it to the Safecoin chain, you can actually then use it on SafeSwap. So having the safe trade in tandem with the decentralized exchange makes adoption much easier because you can actually bring in native stuff and have it converted into tokenized versions automatically. So really, it's just going to work with everything, right? Like you're going to be able to bring in Bitcoin from many different places, such as you're going to be able to move Bitcoin from Uniswap to SafeSwap, or you can deposit native Bitcoin to SafeTrade and move it over to SafeSwap. AC, when will Safe be worth $1? We've got that scheduled for Wednesday. No, we don't. Thank you, Mr. Ty. I do agree. The ease and use of SafeSwap will bring a lot of attention and volume to Safecoin. Not a question, but I agree. Crypto Gamer, will a higher performing validator be more likely to vote than a lower performing bare minimum spec machine? So this is a fantastic question. Not to the same extent. So like Solana's really pushing the limits of the network unnecessarily, right? Because most of it is just for their consensus. In Solana, it does make quite a bit of a difference. On Safecoin, it shouldn't. Now, of course, we still got more work to do. We're going to be releasing the validators here, and we'll be working with the community on this to find some of these answers out in the real wild, in the actual world. But the intent is that it should not make a big difference, right? Keep in mind too that, if your validator processes faster, you're likely also paying more for that validator. So there's kind of a balance there. It's true, we don't want people trying to run validators on Atari 64, or Komodo. We want decent equipment, but not equipment that's going to break your bank. So I can only speak in terms of design and intent until we actually release them, because there's a lot of factors in this. But the way we've done this, it shouldn't really make a massive difference. Also, keep in mind that the actual voting part of it is randomly sampled anyway. Okay. I can keep going, guys. Sorry, I know I'm over, but we did start late, so I'll keep going. If you guys want to keep going, that's totally fine. And these are great questions. And JJ Gobel, I'm sorry, I haven't answered any of your marketing questions. They are good questions. It's just we're already, we're running short for time, and they're not really. There's a lot of validator questions, so I got to answer those. Hope you understand. But I appreciate the points you're making there. So we'll hire. Okay, there is a pre-mine now. What the price is? If the price is priming, can you speak to the availability of the pre-mine for some paid marketing? Oh, it's another marketing question. We don't see the need. The pre-mine's never been sold. In fact, the project holds more Safecoin now than it did on the launch by quite a bit, by various people highly and closely involved in it, because we believe in the project. Keep in mind, there's a time and a place for these things. You can be rest assured that, for one, there's an extreme short supply, right? Like nobody's selling their Safecoin that's close to the project here, that has any influence over the pre-mine, for instance. There's going to be other times where we need that pre-mine. A few people in here actually gave me when Binance, and thank you for that. When Binance typically means you have to give Binance 5% of your coin supply. So that's half the pre-mine gone. We do have to be careful with it. A lot of coins actually have no pre-mine left, and they're still struggling. What we're trying to do is we're trying to build this project up. We've worked very, very hard and spent a lot of money, quite frankly, to make sure that our project does have funds available to it in the form of Safecoin. But that is for the future. That is for the future, so that we can make a massive difference in the crypto world, right? So, we're not going to spend it frivolously at all. AC, so you are centralizing Safecoin? Nope, but definitely, if you want to clear, I don't know where that came from, but if you want to elaborate, I'll answer. But no, Safecoin is highly decentralized, and we're constantly working to decentralize it more, right? And that was one of the reasons we forked Solana. I mean, Solana was an IEO, 50% IEO, and is very centrally run. We're not. Magilla, DEXs are extremely competitive space. My question is, if you didn't achieve significant market share running exchange, how you change what you do to have a market share in space now? Uniswap, PancakeSwap, all the top decentralized exchanges didn't have experience running an exchange at all when they launched, and they did great. We spent an enormous amount of time researching this and developing it, and using our experience, because one of the things people don't understand is that we've been doing exchanges for 3 years. And in March of 2018, when we started exchanges, were we experts at it? No, we weren't. Are we experts at it now? We know more than most projects do about exchanges. I'll say that. I mean, we have some experience, and we've seen continuous growth on SafeTrade for 3 years. Something to keep in mind is that you have to look at where something started. We started with nothing, and now we actually have some pretty decent volume on SafeTrade through an enormous amount of work and learning and experience. Now we're taking all of that and we're saying, how can we make this even better? If we were like, with all the knowledge we've gained over the last 3 years, how can we actually make a huge difference in crypto? So, I mean, your question is, well, you have 3 years experience, so how will you succeed? It's through those 3 years of experience is how we're going to succeed, coupled with much better technology and research. Mr. Coins, when will we be able to actually set up validators and stake earn from our coins? When is public release date? Ho, ho, ho. When is public release date? So there's going to be 2 stages to this. The first stage is we're going to release the code and instructions for validators. The second stage is we're going to do one more update, and they will start earning and staking. Stage 1 will happen within the next 3 days here. So we're going to start. It could. I don't want to promise beyond that. We had some targets of releasing it today, so I'm just going to say within the next 3 days, we will be releasing the code and instructions for running a validator. Within the next week, we will enable people to start staking. So we want to stage it because we want to give people time to test the network. We want time to see how the network responds. We're trying to gather as much data as we can. It's a really important time for us to do this right. So I do believe in staging it. So yeah, that's how I see it. I see it in 2 stages. The first stage happening within the next 3 days, and the second stage happening this week. So the short answer to your question, Mr. C, is a week from today, we're going to be fully running, and I expect sooner than that. Next question, will there be a desktop mobile wallet support that supports delegated staking? There will be desktop support. The mobile wallet may take, I mean, the answer to your question is yes. Will it be functioning next week? Like, by the end of this week, this coming Sunday, will we have a mobile staking wallet? Probably not, because we are just so focused on making sure we get the blockchain right now. But I would say within the month, within 30 days, we're going to have that. Yeah. Brandy Wine. So wrapped tokens on Safecoin chain will be custodial with SafeTrade. Oh, so maybe this is where the decentralization question came in. No, they won't. So here's how that works. So say you've got Bitcoin on SafeTrade, right? And this is actually similar to how Binance does it. Say you've got Bitcoin on SafeTrade, and you want to withdraw that Bitcoin to the Safecoin chain so that you can trade it on SafeSwap. The first thing you do is in your wallet. Now we're going to have a wallet for this. Okay. Now it can be, one thing we'll have is a modified MetaMask, for instance. You're going to actually create an address that you control. Okay. So you're going to have the keys. You will create an address such as on a tool such as MetaMask for the Safecoin token. And say this can be Bitcoin, for instance. So you're going to withdraw from SafeTrade, and those funds will move to your address with your private key. From there, you can trade it on SafeSwap. You can do as you like. We're going to have other applications where you can use it as well. And we hope to grow that. But I hope that answers your question a little bit. Is when you withdraw from SafeTrade, anything you withdraw from SafeTrade goes to your address and your private keys. And people don't realize the entire DEX world, all DEXs require some kind of third party to convert into a token, right? So there's always that third party interference. SafeTrade just makes the adoption much faster. It's a nice, smooth way of moving from centralized to decentralized. Bernie, swapping my safe now, fingers crossed, always getting nervous sending crypto. It's fair. You should always be a little nervous sending your crypto. I think that's a good, healthy thing in crypto. But of course, we do have really good live support. So If you do have any issues, of course, you're going to get helped right away. You don't have to worry about that. You guys can all go into the live support channel, Safe Trade support, if there's any issues, and it gets fixed up for you. Do always make sure that you're withdrawing to an address that's definitely yours. The only thing they can't help you with is if you withdraw it to somewhere that you don't control. Are you ready for staking? I'm not sure if that was a question entitled for me or not, but the staking, yeah, we're going to be seeing that. The validator launch is going to be phased throughout this week, and the staking will be available by the end of this week. Thanks, Bernie. Really appreciate it. I'm actually think I'm caught up on questions, and we're also at the hour mark. I've done my best to answer all the questions. Jay Gabel, my apologies in advance. I know you had a lot of marketing questions there. There's just too many topic related questions for me to get to them, but totally valid questions. I appreciate it. Does anybody else have any other questions before we wrap up here? We're going to see a lot more trolls. Yeah. I don't even think the current ones are that good at what they do, but we're going to see, the more a project grows, the more trolling we're going to get. So it's good practice. Any other questions? Guys, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I can't say enough. We have a fantastic community here. New people here, thank you very much for coming to see our project. We'd love to have you. We'd love to have you involved. Mr. Coins, when is the next AMA? What do you guys think? Do we do another AMA next week? Do we do them bi-weekly? What would you like? Okay, weekly it is. AMA on Sunday. Technical issues will be handled by Kevin. Kevin, yes, we're going to provide help with port forwarding on home users. Solana doesn't really have a lot of home users. That's an area we really want to get into. We really value people who want to run this, and you don't need to, but people who want to run this from home, if that's cheaper for them or whatever, that's really just fantastic for keeping the project decentralized. So we're going to support that as much as we can, including instructions on port forwarding. And we may even provide some tools for it. Anything else, guys? Guys, thank you very, very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I'll see you in Discord. We're going to have news regarding the validators potentially within hours, worst case scenario, a day or two. And this time next week, we will be validating with the community and discussing how that goes, as well as moving to our next topic, which is SafeSwap. Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate it. Feel free to hit me up anytime or any of the team members. We love to chat and see what you guys are looking for and what you think. One last question. Is there anywhere I can get a shortcut getting up to speed with everything? Yeah, this video is going to be recorded. We have a whole YouTube channel full of information. Yeah, you know what? Just hit up any team member or even myself, Philip, depending on what you need. We've got instructions for swapping your coins. We're going to have instructions for the validators. We have Medium articles describing what we're doing and where we're headed. So yes, there's a few different shortcuts for you, and we can hook you up with that. Safecoin.org, gentlemen, safecoin.org. We're going to be putting a lot more on there. Okay. Thanks very much, guys.